No, I won't. I won't. I know
Brian,
you think it's
Brian,
just.
Brian,
I've read.
Brian,
I've heard Susan Humphreys.
This is a long conversation that we're not going to have on this podcast because I'm going to get angry.
Joe Rogan has always been known for his fiery honesty, but when the story broke that Erika Kirk publicly forgave the man who murdered her husband, Charlie Kirk, he couldn't contain his outrage. Rogan's reaction wasn't calm or measured. It was raw, unfiltered anger that poured out as he questioned how anyone could look at a tragedy of that magnitude and decide forgiveness was the right response. On his podcast, he didn't just disagree with Erika's decision, he ripped it apart piece by piece until there was nothing left but a searing critique of what he saw as weakness disguised as virtue.
My husband, Charlie, he wanted to save young men, just like the one who took his life. That young man, on the cross, our Savior said, "Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do." That man, that young man, I forgive him. I forgive him because it was what Christ did and is what Charlie would do. The answer to hate is not hate. The answer we know from the gospel is love, and always love. Love for our enemies and love for those who persecute us.
From the very beginning, Rogan framed the story in blunt terms. He painted a picture of Charlie Kirk's murder, not by rehashing the details of the crime, but by focusing on the devastating reality. A husband, father, and political figure was gone, ripped away by violence. And then, as if that wasn't painful enough, his widow decided to publicly offer forgiveness to the very person responsible. To Rogan, this wasn't compassion, it was betrayal. He described it as the ultimate slap in the face to the memory of Charlie, a choice that seemed to prioritize public image over justice. Rogan's anger simmered as he asked his listeners what message this kind of forgiveness sends. He joked bitterly that if forgiving killers became the new cultural norm, prisons might as well turn into spas. He questioned how Erika could claim to honor Charlie's legacy while letting the man who ended his life walk away with a pardon from her lips. Rogan's frustration wasn't just about Erika's decision, it was about what it represented, a culture obsessed with looking virtuous even when it means ignoring hard truths. He argued that forgiveness without accountability isn't noble, it's reckless, and in this case, it bordered on delusion.
Oh my God, you're crazy. You're crazy for supporting this because this will be used on you. You don't think that the fucking globalist lizard people who run the world are sitting here going, great, what do we got, 3 years? We'll wait this out.
The way Rogan told it, Erika Kirk's public act of forgiveness felt less like an act of grace and more like a staged performance. He ridiculed the press conference where she delivered her statement, mocking the solemn tone and rehearsed delivery. To him, it wasn't a grieving widow speaking from the heart. It was a carefully packaged display meant to earn applause from an audience that values appearances over substance. Rogan made it clear that he had no patience for that kind of performative morality, especially when it meant downplaying the gravity of murder. At one point, Rogan leaned into satire, pretending to be Erika giving her speech. With exaggerated softness in his voice, he mocked the way she spoke about moving forward and choosing peace. Then he snapped back into his own voice and unleashed his fury, saying peace doesn't erase violence and moving forward doesn't mean forgetting justice. The audience erupted in laughter, but behind the humor was a biting critique that hit home. He wasn't just making fun of Erika, he was exposing what he saw as the absurdity of her stance. What made Rogan's anger so powerful was how he tied it to a broader cultural pattern. He explained that society has developed a dangerous obsession with forgiveness as a public spectacle, rewarding people who take the high road even when it means ignoring the pain of victims and their families. He argued that Erika Kirk's decision didn't just dishonor her husband, it contributed to a toxic trend where serious crimes are brushed aside in the name of appearing morally superior. Rogan warned that this kind of behavior sets a precedent where accountability is replaced by applause, and criminals walk away emboldened rather than punished. The podcast conversation took on a darker edge when Rogan asked his listeners to imagine how Charlie Kirk himself would react if he knew what Erika had done. Rogan's voice grew sharp as he said that no man would want his spouse to embrace his killer with forgiveness while his own memory was still fresh. He called it a betrayal of loyalty, a betrayal of family, and a betrayal of justice. That line resonated deeply, sparking countless clips and debates across social media. Fans repeated Rogan's words, saying Erika had not only failed her husband, but also failed everyone who looked to her for strength. Rogan also took aim at the media outlets that praised Erika for her bravery. He scoffed at the headlines, mocking how quickly journalists rushed to label her decision as inspirational. With biting sarcasm, he joked that maybe the killer should be given a medal for giving Erika the chance to show off her saintly forgiveness. The mockery wasn't just cruel, it was calculated, designed to expose how shallow those narratives are when stripped of context. Rogan reminded his audience that behind every soft focus headline is a man who committed murder and a woman who chose to let him off in the court of public opinion. The reaction online mirrored Rogan's anger. His fans filled forums and comment sections with outrage at Erika, echoing his belief that forgiveness in this case wasn't noble, it was cowardly. Memes began circulating of Rogan's mocking impression of Erika, with captions like, "Peace doesn't erase justice." Clips from the episode went viral, fueling a wave of criticism that Erika couldn't ignore. To Rogan, this was proof that people are sick of empty gestures and want real accountability. He argued that Erika underestimated how much ordinary people value justice. The episode didn't just focus on Erika, it used her as an example of a bigger issue. Rogan ranted about how America has fallen into a trap where people confuse being nice with being good. He said forgiveness is often wielded as a weapon to shut down anger, to make victims feel guilty for demanding justice. And in Erika's case, it wasn't just her forgiveness that was problematic, it was the way she put it on display for the world to see, as if it were a badge of honor. Rogan said that private forgiveness is one thing, but turning it into a public performance is something entirely different and far more damaging. Rogan's anger boiled over when he imagined the killer hearing Erika's words. He painted a vivid picture of the murderer sitting in a prison cell, grinning ear to ear because the widow of his victim had essentially absolved him. Rogan mocked the idea of the killer using Erika's forgiveness as leverage for leniency, turning her act into a weapon against justice itself. The thought enraged him, and his rant grew louder and more animated. His audience was captivated, hanging on every word as he tore Erika's actions apart. By the time Rogan finished his monologue, there was no mistaking where he stood. He made it clear that Erika Kirk's forgiveness was, in his view, a catastrophic mistake. Not just on a personal level, but on a cultural one. He warned that if society continues to celebrate forgiveness in cases like this, it risks creating a world where murderers walk free and victims are forgotten. Rogan's anger wasn't just emotional, it was logical. building a case against Erika's decision that resonated deeply with his audience. The podcast episode became one of Rogan's most talked about rants in recent memory. Clips spread across Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube, with fans debating the ethics of forgiveness and justice. Many sided with Rogan, agreeing that forgiveness without consequences is meaningless. Others defended Erika, saying her faith drove her decision. But Rogan had already made his point. His anger wasn't just about Erika's faith. It was about her choice to publicly elevate the man who destroyed her husband's life. And in Rogan's eyes, that was unforgivable. As the story developed, Rogan continued to revisit the topic in later episodes, each time adding new layers to his critique. He mocked the way Erika tried to defend her decision in interviews, saying her explanations sounded like scripted talking points. He joked that Erika's publicist must be working overtime to spin her forgiveness into something heroic, when in reality, it only made her look weaker. Rogan's relentless criticism ensured that Erika couldn't escape the backlash, keeping the story alive long after the initial announcement faded from the headlines. The feud between Rogan and Erika Kirk became more than just a clash of personalities. It became a cultural flashpoint. It highlighted the growing divide between those who value accountability and those who value appearances. Rogan positioned himself as a voice for the former, someone willing to say what others are too polite to admit. Erika, meanwhile, became a symbol of the latter, a cautionary tale about the dangers of forgiveness when it's used as a shield instead of a solution. In the end, Rogan's anger at Erika wasn't just about one widow's decision. It was about what that decision represents in a world where justice is often sacrificed for image. His rant struck a chord because it spoke to a deeper truth. Forgiveness without accountability isn't strength, it's surrender. And for Joe Rogan, surrendering to a murderer is something that can never be excused. His message was as loud as it was clear. Some acts don't deserve forgiveness, and Erika Kirk's decision to hand it out so freely is a mistake that will haunt her forever.